How to actually learn jazz piano. Maybe you're like me, you came from a classical background, you don't even know how to build a simple major 7 chord. What does major 7 even mean? Minor 7 even mean? Where do chords even come from? This was my background when I started jazz piano. What I'm about to show you today are the steps that I took to learn jazz piano. Although I went to jazz school, some of these fundamentals that I'm about to teach you today are things that were really not even drilled into me. And being in the position that I am in now, I know that these are some of the things that you're going to have to know if you're trying to advance in jazz piano. So as a beginner, here is the first place that you need to start. Everything you learned in classical piano is not useless. Take the major scale. As a beginner, this is probably going to be the most important scale that you should know. Let's take G major. Step 1, what you want to do is to be able to play the scale as chords. How do we build chords? We build them in thirds. So on every degree of the major scale, I want you to be able to build chords. G, a third above that is B, a third above is D, and then a third above is F sharp. Right, we're playing 7th chords now. These are the kinds of chords that we're going to be looking at when we're getting into jazz piano. And you want to move up the scale like that. 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th degree, 5, 6, 7, and of course 1 will be the tonic again. Step number 2, chord tones. Chord tones are the building blocks or the building notes of a chord. They give us the chord quality, and when we know the chord quality, we know how the chord is functioning. Do we have a major 7 chord? Do we have a minor 7 chord? Is it a dominant chord? The chord tones are root, 3rd, and 7th. Step 1 we did root, 3rd, 5, and 7. Now I'm telling you to omit the 5. Now what we're going to do, we're just going to do root, 3rd, 7. As jazz piano players, we share the work amongst both hands. So you're going to take the root, you're going to play it with your left hand, and then what you can do is put the 7th on top of that with your right, and you put the 3rd above that. Doesn't that sound much more cohesive? Don't the voices really blend well like that? So root, 7, 3, and we're going to move up the scale exactly like this. You also want to be able to do it in the reverse order. So we do root, 3rd first, and then 7th on top. And of course, you want to practice this in various other keys. So example, I can practice it in C major. I can do F major. And I could do B flat major. Step 3, it's important when you're starting jazz piano to isolate the chord progressions that are most common in jazz standards. There are quite a few progressions that you're going to come across, but as a beginner, I would say the most important is the 2-5-1. This is a progression that you are going to come across. I want to say almost all jazz standards, maybe with the exception of modal tunes like So What. And even then, you could probably fit in a 2-5-1 if you really wanted to do some reharmonization stuff. We had, in step 1 and step 2, we were playing the scale as chords. And you might have noticed during practicing these steps that on each degree we have different quality chords. Chord 1 we have major 7, chord 2 minor 7, right, this is A minor 7. Chord 3 we had another minor 7. Chord 4 we had a major 7. Here we have C major 7 and G major. In chord 5 we had a dominant chord. Chord 6 we had a minor 7. chord 7 is actually half diminished. And I'm going to point out at this point that for half diminished, I want you to put the 5 in there. Okay, because it's actually a minor flat 5 chord. But don't worry about the 5th for any other chord. So just worry about the 5th for half diminished. And then for root, we just do root third 7. So we have major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant, minor 7, half diminished. Okay, now we already know, since we did step 1 and step 2, that hey, chord 2 is minor, right? If I'm doing a 2-5-1 in the key of G major, I have a minor 7 chord. And when I go to chord 5, 2, 5, I have a dominant chord. 1, 2, 5, 1, I have a major 7 chord. So the qualities of a 2-5-1 are minor 2-7, 5-7. This is how we express dominant. We don't say 5 dominant 7. We just say 5-7, like D7 instead of D dominant 7. At least that's how we write it. What sets you apart from a beginner to an actual jazz piano player is your voice leading. We don't want to do this. We want to avoid these kind of root position kinds of playing. You notice when you move from chord 2 to chord 5, you actually have a common note. Here we have A, G, C. For D7, we have C, D, C, F sharp, C being the common note. When we move to G major, we have F sharp and B. But F sharp is also a common note when we move from D7 to G major, right? So why not keep those common notes in the same place? So A7, I'm going to keep the C because it's going to be the flat 7 of D. So we just move the G down to F sharp, right? Now the F sharp will be a common note from D7 to G major. We move the C down. Doesn't that sound much better? As opposed to doing. No, it's a little harsh on the ear. This is how you practice your 2-5s. You practice them with as minimal jumping as possible. When they are common notes, you keep them and move what needs to be moved. You want to do it in a different position. Here we have root 7-3, but now we're going to do root 3-7 and see how you can move that. You see how little I'm actually moving? You should look like you're almost doing nothing. That sounds much better then. Again, we take it in other keys. C major, 2-5-1. F major, 2-5-1. B flat major, 2-5-1. E flat major, 2-5-1. A flat major, 2-5-1. Everything that you learn in classical music is not useless. Among the many mysteries that we find in jazz, somehow jazz always seems like a mystery, but it's actually not. It's a bunch of rules, that you come to gather as you play with experience. And one of the things that was drilled in classical music is the importance of the relative minor to major. Example, in the key of G major, how do we find the relative minor? Go to the 6th degree. The 6th degree is E, which means that E minor is the relative minor of G major. So if we have C major, the 6th degree would be A. A minor is the relative minor of C major. And this is really important because you find, among many things, as I said, that you find in jazz that are common, be mindful of the importance of the minor to the relative major, because we find these kinds of progressions within jazz standards. An example, it would be Autumn Leaves. Autumn Leaves starts in the major and modulates to the minor. Starts in B flat major. Here we have 2-5 to the major, 4, then we have a 2-5 to the minor. Don't worry, I'll explain all of that. In a song like softly as in a morning sunrise. We have starts in the minor. So we started on C minor, then it modulates to E flat major. C minor is the relative minor of E flat major, or a song like Fly Me to the Moon. Here is the relative major, but it goes to the relative minor. So keep that in mind. Relative major, relative minor. Step number 4, what you want to do is to put what you've learned in step 1, 2, and 3 into context. A context in music is a song. A jazz standard that probably most of you know who are watching. Autumn Leaves starts in on C minor 7, goes to F7, it then goes to B flat major 7, then does E flat major 7. We then have a A half diminished or A minor flat 5, then we have a D7, and then we land on G minor. What's the first thing you do? Voice each chord using root, 7, and third. And the most important thing is to have good voice leading, exactly like how I showed you on step number 2. Let's start with just the chords. C minor 7, I'm doing root, 7, 3. Here we have F7, F3, 7. Chord 1, root, 7, 3. Again, I'm keeping common notes, I'm not jumping. Now we're moving to chord 4, and I can see chord 4, the D can stay because that'll be the 7th of chord 4. Right, so we have now for A half diminished. Remember, for the half diminished I said let's put the 5 in there. We have root, 7, 3, flat 5. Right, for D7, one thing I didn't mention is that for half diminished chords, the 2 5s, the 2 is a half diminished and the 5 is a dominant chord. And then we go to minor chord 1. And because we had that flat 5 in there, the flat 5 actually becomes a tension for D7. And then we can land on G minor with the 5 on top. Here's the root, 7, 3, 5, right? It's kind of forcing me to do a 5 because I've got that flat 9 on the D7 to G minor 7. If you want to know more about tensions, I do have a video that I will link in the description so you can know how to add tensions. Now we want to add the melody. Here's the melody. I think one of the trickiest things when I move from classical to jazz is to actually allow my hands to share the work. A lot of the times I just wanted to do melody and chord in the left hand. That's not what you want to do. I have the melody on top, but I'm also going to put down the third with my right hand. Right, root 7, third. Notice how I'm sharing. Another way you could play the song is by playing the melody first and then hopping on the chords. So this is the approach that you should be taking for any jazz standard that you're working on. Know the chord functions of all the chords. Example, am I doing a 2-5 progression? Am I on the chord 4? Am I on the chord 6? Use only 3-note voicings, root, 7, and 3, with the exception of the flat 5 when you're on a minor flat 5 chord, and add the melody on top. If you can apply this for all of your songs, you'll see that once you start getting into more advanced concepts, your life is going to be way easier. So I hope this video helped you. Please leave a like and subscribe. Share the video with someone who you think it will be useful to, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye.